Hi, we last left off by talking about the idea that we all have social information processing biases, and that comes from the experiences we had in childhood and adolescence with popularity. Our peers from back when we were kids are still affecting how we see things, how we interpret things that we want and the behaviors that we engage into this day. That we're going to talk about how are a couple of very common biases that we're seen in the research literature that really tell us a lot about why some kids with peer region experience grow up to have difficult across many domains in their lives. And the first of these is referred to hostile abrasion bees, specifically this is a reference to the Q interpretation piece. But what we found is that people with the hostile actually affect all the different areas of social information processing. And here is how we study it with young kids. Kids might look a little picture like this, and they read a story. This one says, imagine you're sitting at a lunch table at school eating lunch. You look up and you see another child coming over to your table with a carton of milk. You turn around to eat your lunch, and the next thing that happens is that the child spills milk all over your back. The milk gets your shirt all wet. That was done because that kid was being meat, and because they were trying to. You let another child play with it for a few moments while you go get a drink of water. When you get back, you see that the child has broken your brand new toy. Again, a lot of people should say, why would the child have broken that toy on purpose? Um, it was just an incident. Somehow it just happened, but some kids that we would say have a hostile ambitions. This would look at that experience and say that happens because that kid broke the toy of purpose. Just to be mean to me. It turns out that kids with a host addiction based during childhood and adolescence, and also when they grow up. They tend to have biased or distorted way of experiencing all of the social information processing steps. So if you ask kids to look at a picture of to watch a video, and you ask them to tell you what to say, save hostile abstraction basis, kids will selectively see the things in their visual field that suggest aggression and even if you control for how aggressive this kind we previously, we find that kind who were rejected by persons developed and increase the tendency to have this hostile attraction bias, and they see more aggressive things in front of them, and they fail to see postal things in front of them, kids that are maybe laughing and playing with the other. As we just talked about, SEO interpretation is also affected. So when present will an ambiguous situation, why did someone walk by and their shoulder bumped your shoulder? They would say they did in purpose. It was to be mean, and everyone else would probably not think that. When you give them an interpretation, what you do? So in other words, we hold in contact the Q interpretation. Those kids with hostile attribution bias, they're more likely to sum up with the aggressive sensors. So their goals will be want to get back at that. I want to make that feel bad. I want to hurt them. If you think about it, even as adults, there are ways in which people who are wrong, whether in a workplace or whether in a romantic partnership, their desire is especially to try and get back at them. That something that we think stemming from hostile arbiters bias. And even if you give someone the answer, if you say, let's think of a word that you could. Now we're going to do a role play. So what will test the responses in active phrase, but you give that the response selection. People, children, adolescents, and adults with a hostile attribution bias have a harder time with in adulthood of curse. We don't see people kind of beating each other up as much. That's something you see a little bit more in children and adolescents, but you do people that tend to act aggressively. We do see that there's in psychical violence and also emotion abuse that occurs towards a spouse of a romantic partner. We do see towards kids that with hostile habitudes they were left out. It was due to some way in which they were being asked. As a result, these are folks that don't tend to do as well at work. They come late. They leave early. Research show that they're more likely to steal orphans' supplies. They bet mouths the workplace to other people, and they're even more likely to quit. We even now have some research to show that where maybe integration effects. So if there's some adults that have a hostile attribution bias grow up to become parents, and that we find is if it changes the way that they are parents, and it changes their kinds. Nicole Werner did a research study where she looks at moms who did a hostile attribution bias, and the method how much moms had a hostile attribution bias when asked to interpret that happens between moms and other adults. That happens between moms and kids, especially their kids, and also then they were given scenarios and asked her to interpret what was happening between two children, and they got all that information from moms, and then they found on how to count their coin by asking this kids teachers to complete in segments of how aggressive their kinds were. Also, interestingly, these months tended to say that when they got into fights with other open children, they throughout wasn't because of their child expressing their needs, or their child being just tired or hungry, or some other research why their child was being asked. They were more likely to see their children were being hostile towards them, towards the parents on purpose. And of course, you can imagine that changes a lot about how that kid would that be raised, or his that mom feels about being a mom. Also, that happens is that moms with a hostile eviction bills there tended to be kids that their kid tended to grow up to be more aggressive. The teachers independently reported that those some kids, the one of the moms who did a hostile eviction bias with the ones that found more with their classmates got angry among their class, and tended to be more psychical and more upsettable when it come to sensors that most kind tended to not have as many problems with. So that just one example of a type of bias that we see happen in childhood, and adolescence that tends to have an effect on the way that we experience things all throughout the rest of your lives across a different context.